Their sole purpose is power and plunder. That's what Lysander Spooner said about people in government. And they've been robbing the people blind forever. Bastiat called it legal plunder, using law as a tool to rip you off and oppress you. On this episode, what they don't want you to know about how the entire system actually works. But first of all, before getting to that, welcome, and thank you for joining me here on the Path to Liberty. My name is Michael Bolden with the 10th Amendment Center, and this is the show for Wednesday, July 16th, 2025. Let's get right to it and think about it from the standpoint of this question. When a guy in an alley puts a gun to your head and takes your wallet, what do you call that? Well, it's armed robbery, right? But when Congress passes a law or you get a regulation from government that says money must come out of your paycheck so they can take it and give it to someone else who didn't earn it, what do they call that? Well, to them, it's just policy. Same crime, different words, different costumes. Bastiat called this out as legal plunder all the way back, I believe, in 1848, and he gave us a pretty straightforward and simple test to identify it every single time. Here's how he put it in the law. But how is this legal plunder to be identified? Quite simply. See if the law takes from some persons what belongs to them and gives it to other persons to whom it does not belong. See if the law benefits one citizen at the expense of another by doing what the citizen himself cannot do without committing a crime. And that's really your test for whether something is legal plunder or not. Once you see it, you really can't unsee it. And Algernon Sidney saw it almost 2 centuries earlier in Discourses Concerning Government. He said, those who are so set up have their root in violence or fraud and are rather to be accounted robbers and pirates than magistrates. Now, Bastiat explained how they make this whole system basically permanent, self-fulfilling, self-feeding. And he wrote, when plunder has become the means of existence of a large group of men mutually linked by social ties, they soon contrive to pass a law that sanctions it and a moral code that glorifies it. Now, of course, this was nothing new in the middle of the 19th century. Going back to the Philadelphia Convention, Benjamin Franklin pointed out that this type of thing happened all throughout history. He knew that it was a war of government against the people in every state and every kingdom. And that's how he put it. As all history informs us, there has been in every state and kingdom a constant kind of warfare between the governing and governed. The one striving to obtain more for its support, and the other to pay less. And again, here's the really sick part. It's a vicious cycle that really just feeds itself. It's self-perpetuating. Franklin continued. He said, the more the people are discontented with the oppression of taxes, the greater need the prince has of money to distribute among his partisans and pay the troops that are to suppress all resistance and enable him to plunder at pleasure. Plunder at pleasure through the oppression of taxes. And if that's not bad enough, just wait. There's even more. Franklin explained that the cycle has some pretty terrible consequences. It doesn't work out too well for we the people too often. He said, and this has alone occasioned great convulsions, actual civil wars, ending either in dethroning of the princes or enslaving of the people. Now, of course, sometimes the bad guys get tossed out, we'll say, but that's more of the exception rather than the rule. And Franklin continued with this. Generally, indeed, the ruling power carries its point. The revenues of princes constantly increasing, And we see that they are never satisfied, but always in want of more. It reminds me of a great quote from Abigail Adams, talking about the nature of power. It's always increasing, and even from the grave it cries, "Give, give." There's always an expansion of power and control from these people. And Thomas Gordon, writing in Cato's Letters, I believe this is number 36, back in 1721, highly influential on the founders and the old revolutionaries. Well, Gordon understood that the entire game was rigged. If you've got power, you're more likely to get away with all kinds of crimes than if you don't. He said, it is safer for a great man to rob a country than for a poor man to steal a loaf. But the wages of villainy protect villains, and justice is only blind where the object is naked. James Madison, the father of the Constitution, he explained the core mechanism that makes plunder and corruption much more likely and much more possible. This is in a letter to Thomas Jefferson. He said, where power is in the few, it is natural for them to sacrifice the many to their own partialities and corruptions. And Jefferson, in a letter to Gideon Granger a couple of years later, he added the kicker. Centralized power ensures that there's basically no oversight, no control, no nothing. It's like leaving a teenager with a credit card and no way to access the statements. You think that they're just not going to blow right through that almost immediately? They're not going to show any restraint. And this is how Jefferson put it. And the same circumstance, by rendering detection impossible to their constituents, will invite the public agents to corruption, plunder, and waste. John Taylor of Caroline destroyed the idea that all you need to prevent this corruption, plunder, and waste is three co-equal branches checking each other, because in practice, it's actually pretty easy for them to team up against all of us. He said, the more power is condensed, the more pernicious it becomes. Divided only into three departments, such as king, lords, and commons, it can easily coalesce, plunder, and oppress. And from there, Taylor gave us the entire playbook, step by step, how they rob you, rip you off, and oppress you. First of all, they create fake jobs for their buddies. Then they blow your tax money and make themselves rich. He said such a legislature, especially one that's based on a system of paper and patronage, is what he said. This was from his Inquiry into the Principles and Policy of the Government of the United States. This is 1814. He said such a legislature will create unnecessary offices that themselves or their relations may be endowed with them. They will lavish the revenue to enrich themselves. Next up, number 3, and I think this is pretty slick, they borrow in your name and then they lend it out as a profit for themselves or their friends and supporters. They say they will borrow for the nation that they may lend. They will offer lenders great profits that they may share in them. Finally, when their scam gets so obvious they can't hide it anymore, the people start getting upset. They're a little uppity about this. The people with power never apologize. They double down. They build an army, not to protect you, of course, but to protect their racket. And here's how Taylor put it. As grievances gradually excite national discontent, they will fix the yoke more securely by making it gradually heavier. And they will finally avow and maintain their corruption. It's almost like, yeah, well, this is what we're doing, but we're going to do it anyways. And how do they do that? By establishing an irresistible standing army, not to defend the nation, but to defend a system of plundering the nation. And Lysander Spooner did not mess around on this. It's not just about a few bad apples doing a few bad things here and there, and then you can stomp them. It's really the entire system. And they use the entire government and you like a personal ATM machine. And he's basically talking about, this is in the 19th century, he was basically writing about kind of I guess we could call it a financial deep state, an elite that had kind of control on the reins of power. He said these 100,000 so-called businessmen not only own the government, but they are the government. Congress, he wrote, is made up of them and their tools. And they hold all the other departments of the government in their hands. Man, that sounds familiar. Their sole purpose is power and plunder. And they suffer no constitutional or natural law to stand in the way of their rapacity. And then Spooner laid out the ultimate scam. Once they can take your money without your consent, there's really no limit to what they can do. They've basically got you by the throat forever. He said if the government can take a man's money without his consent, there is no limit to the additional tyranny it may practice upon him. I mean, if you think about this, you're being forced to pay for your own oppression. Thomas Paine, early on in Common Sense in 1776, he said, it's even worse when we realize that we're furnishing the means by which we suffer. Anyways, back to Spooner. He said, for with his money, it can hire soldiers to stand over him, keep him in subjection, plunder him at discretion, and kill him if he resists. And then he called out the insane logic of all this in No Treason number 2. We've been conditioned ever since day one to believe that robbery isn't actually robbery just because it's done by government. Robbery isn't robbery because they call it a law, a regulation, or a program. It's just okay because government does it. But Spooner took this apart. He said no middle ground is possible on this subject. Either taxation without consent is robbery, or it is not. He said if it is not, then any number of men who choose may at any time associate, call themselves a government, assume absolute authority over all weaker than themselves, plunder them at will, and kill them if they resist. Now back to Bastiat in the law, he hit us with the punchline. Basically, every single government program is really just a different flavor of the same crime, taking your money and giving it to someone else. He said, now, legal plunder can be committed in an infinite number of ways. It's hard to think of all of them, but he gave us some pretty good examples. He said, thus, we have an infinite number of plans for organizing it. Tariffs, protection, benefits, subsidies, encouragements, progressive taxation, public schools, guaranteed jobs, guaranteed profits, minimum wages, a right to relief, a right to the tools of labor, free credit, and so on, and so on. And Bastiat didn't stop there. When you add it all up, all these different schemes and programs and versions of legal plunder, when you add them up under one big umbrella, what do you get? Socialism. He said all these plans as a whole, with their common aim of legal plunder, constitute socialism. Bastiat called it legal plunder. Spooner said their sole purpose is power and plunder. Today, they just call it government. I don't know about you, but anytime we share any principles like these, we get attacked as anti-government extremists, as if it's a bad thing to be attacked by pro-government extremists supporting the largest government in the history of the planet. But we push on with the truth, no matter how much the odds are stacked against us, and nothing helps us reach and teach more and more people about these essential foundational principles more than the financial faith and support of our members. If you got a couple of bucks of that quickly devaluing, dirty government fiat, please consider throwing it our way over at 10thamendmentcenter.com/members. Our membership program starts out at just $2 a month. We also have annual, 5-year, and lifetime options. Again, that's 10thamendmentcenter.com/members. It's all spelled out. And if you don't want to become a member but still want to pitch in and support us financially, that is pretty awesome. Whatever works best for you works best for me. Or if you're already a member, first of all, thank you again. I can't thank you enough for your support. But you want to pitch in additional, no pressure, but you can do that over at 10thamendmentcenter.com/donate. There's also a bunch of free and easy peasy things that you can do to help us spread the word, primarily triggering the algorithms of the platform you may watch or listen on, reviews on Apple Podcasts or any other podcast platform, hitting the like button, subscribe, get notifications, comments in the archives, all that stuff really helps out a great deal. But a big one over on the mainstream video platforms like YouTube is watch time percentage. So for example, you got a 10-minute video and you watch 10 minutes, that's 100%. That's pretty good. They like that. But if you watch it twice, 20 minutes, you get 200%. That'll actually push us out a little bit further. I'm so grateful for your help, whether it's financial, otherwise, or a combination of the two. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for spending some of your time with me today. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I hope it was interesting, fun to watch or listen to from time to time, maybe even a little entertaining here and there. But more important than anything, I hope it made you think, and I hope you learned something. Again, I really appreciate you spending some of your time with me today. I hope you enjoyed the episode, and I look forward to seeing you next time here on the Path to Liberty.